It seems appropriate in this beautiful church, in this magnificent sanctuary, to tell you that the best-selling book, the most popular book of all time, is the Bible. Even more popular than Tim's monthly column. And the Bible, with 31,202 verses, you certainly get your money's worth. And I suspect that everyone here probably has a favorite Bible verse. It could be the entirety of Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, or a Bible verse that is seen at football stadiums across the country in the fall, John 3, verse 16. God so loved the world. But for me, ladies and gentlemen, my favorite Bible verse is found in the Gospel of John, the last chapter, chapter 21, the last verse, chapter 25. John 21, verse 25. And it says, Jesus did so many other things, the which, if they were written, every one, I suppose that the world could not contain all the books that would be written. All the blessings, all the miracles, all the libraries in the world, all the bookshelves in the world, all the exercise equipment could not contain all the books of all the miracles and all the blessings. But the book of miracle, the book of blessing that is Lake Region Electric Cooperative, could not have been written 86 or 87 years ago. So 86 and 87 years ago, this country was in the grasp of the Great Depression. Farm income. Over half the nation's population lived in rural America. Had a per capita income of $1,800, which meant that at least 50% had a farm income of $1,600 or $1,200. And likely the bottom 25% were less than $1,000. And so the idea of bringing rural electrification to the counties of Wilkin and Otter Tail and Becker County must have been so fanciful. And if they thought about it at all, so electricity is for city people. We simply can't afford it. And at $3,000 a mile, the cost then to extend electricity a mile away, it's just not within the realm of possibility. And then there was the $5 membership. $5 membership to a family making less than $1,000 when they coveted what was in the page of the Montgomery Ward's catalog, looking at shoes for the kids, or kitchen appliance, well, there would be appliance, something in the kitchen for the farm wife. And so $5 was not within their grasp, belonged to the cooperative. But because there was no electricity, the burden fell disproportionately on the farm wife. The average farm family used 40 gallons of water for each individual. Today it's over 100. Each gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds. So if you had a family of 5, perhaps small by rural standards back then, that was 1,600 pounds of water that the farm wife had to carry an average of a football field away. 100 yards. 1,600 pounds day in and day out. And Robert Caro, who wrote 2 great chapters on rural education, recounted what the farm wife said was the hardest day of the week. It was generally Monday, because that's when they wash clothes. I see some heads nodding. And so she would create this giant bonfire and have gallons of water, 8 pounds for each gallon of water, into this big pot, wait for it to boil. And because there was no electricity, she had to agitate the clothes to get them clean. And farm wives probably universally said Mondays were the worst day. We could hardly get out of bed to the next day. And at the age of 35 and 40, they were stooped beyond age. Rotator cuff problems, disc problems in their back, their knees went out, their ankles swollen, because there was no electricity. And in the evening, children would gather around a kerosene lamp, which would soon darken the glass globe so they couldn't do their work, their math, and read their McGuffey reader. And so they were sent to bed, and the husband and the farm wife, so exhausted from the day's work, sat there in silence with loneliness descending on them. The ache of loneliness because they couldn't listen to a radio, couldn't listen to FDR's fireside chats, couldn't listen to music because there was no electricity. Because there was no electricity, people started talking about electrifying. What would it be to have electricity? Which brings us to a farmer in Tennessee. True story. This Tennessee farmer looked at how hard his wife worked and how she was old beyond her years. And so he went to the power company official and asked, what would it take to extend the line over here, your line, to my farm over here, a couple miles away? Power company official said, well, we can't do that. We can't extend our lines to your farm because it's going to cost too much money. And you're not going to use enough electricity to justify that expense. So if you want electricity, you're going to have to get a farm which is right next to our power pole. And so somewhat dejected, the farmer went home, talked it over with his family, made a momentous decision, which he unveiled the next day, went back to the power company official, said, we've decided we'll sell our farm. Imagine that, a farm that was likely in its family for generations. We'll sell the farm at the height of the Great Depression because electricity is so important. Power company official said, well, if we do it for you, we'll have to do it for everyone who wants to sell their farm to get electrification. And so the miracle that is Lake Region Electric Cooperative stalled yet again until legislation was introduced before the Congress of the United States. It's introduced by two gentlemen so dissimilar. The one is a gentleman by the name of George Norris, the U.S. Senator from Nebraska, where I held. And George Norris is regarded as one of the greatest senators ever to serve in that august body. The other gentleman was an avowed racist who voted and introduced legislation to inter Japanese Americans after Pearl Harbor. His name was John Rankin. But Rankin was so concerned about his constituents who didn't have rural electrification. And so the REA Act, the Rural Electrification Administration Act, was introduced, created to lend money to cooperatives, which were much popular then and today. So it easily passed the Senate, but it came to the House Energy Committee. And the private power companies, like Ottertail, Northern States Power, rose up in opposition. Never mind that FDR asked them to electrify rural America, and we will give you the money to do it. They didn't want any part of that. But when it came a reality, the prospect of electrifying rural America caused them to come together and oppose this legislation. They said, imagine this. A utility that's owned by the people they serve, that strikes us as communistic. And so the great debate erupted in the House Energy Committee. When the vote was taken, it didn't pass by 10 votes, it didn't pass by 5 votes, it didn't pass by 2 votes. It passed by a single vote. A single vote. But once it passed, in 10 years, the number of rural customers across the far reaches of the United States increased by 9-fold. 10% received it before REA, Rural Electrification Administration Act, was passed to nearly 90%. And so Lake Region Electric Cooperative started with 1 customer and 1 mile of line. Today it's 5,800 miles of line and 28,000 customers. But I want to return to my Tennessee farmer. Sid preempted me, thank you very much. But it's worth telling this story again because how meaningful it is. So the farmers then, and I expect the farmers back in the 3 counties this co-op served, helped dig the holes for these power poles. Literally dug the holes and helped plant the poles, tapped in the soil, and maybe strung the line. So this Tennessee farmer helped out. They connected his farm, went down the road, connected the next one, and so on and so forth. And you can be sure that the farmer put in electric lights, probably put in a pump in the house so his wife didn't have to carry 3/4 of a ton of water every day. She'd turn on the faucet. Probably got a refrigerator as well. I remember my father telling me when he was a kid in college, delivering ice because there was no electricity for no refrigeration. Probably wired the barn for lights, maybe put in a grinder so he wouldn't have to do that by hand. And so that evening he took his family to a little hill overlooking the farm at twilight. And the curtains of the house were open, and the barn door was askew, and they sat there transfixed, seeing for the very first time light pierce the darkness, seeing how electricity could illuminate their lives. Can you imagine the emotion they felt? The next day, Sunday, they went to church, and this particular church allowed the parishioners at the end of the service to give testimony of their faith. And the farmer got to his feet and made the observation. He said, "Brothers and sisters, I want to tell you this, that the greatest thing is the love of Jesus in your heart. And the next greatest thing, not the next best thing, but the next greatest thing is to have rural electrification in your home. The next greatest thing." Now there are many books written, but none so pronounced as the book of Matthew. It teaches us Beatitudes. It has a Sermon on the Mount. And here I have to ask my friend Jack Glaess about chapter 25, verse 40, which says, "As you have done to the least of them." Did I get that citation right? I'm sure I did. And it's an edict that I struggle with every day. It says, as you have done to the least of them, you have done to me. The Rural Electrification Administration, the REA, was created solely to lift people out of poverty. To lift them out of poverty. This is nearly a commandment that this cooperative has taken seriously. You heard Tim talk about the Roundup program. On average, it costs you $6 a year. And they've raised substantial amount of money to help people sand off the rough edges of their life. Recently, a year or two ago, Lake Region sent 3 linemen, Anthony Spaeth, Louis Bakken, and Troy Setter, to go to the poorest country in the world. The poorest country in the world, which is Haiti. And their little town called Pinon had a gas turbine laid in a dusty shed. And it was by happenstance that missionaries that came to Pinon, Haiti, discovered this turbine and offered to provide electrification. And so these 3 linemen went to this poor town, and the locals dug the holes, helped plant the poles, and string the lines. Electricity comes on now and again, but enough to power their smartphones, I would guess. And certainly at night, so the children can study. And as it happens in Haiti, they're beset by continued civil war. The townspeople were so proud and so dependent of their electric cooperative that they came out with shovels and hoes and pitchforks to defend their electric cooperative, their electric infrastructure that these 3 linemen helped build against the insurgents, showing how important electrification is to Pinon, Haiti, the next greatest thing. And the other thing that resonates with me is I recall when Tim was assistant manager at a co-op called Freeborn Mauer. This is in Albert Lee. And Tim had done a lot to create jobs, similar to what he has done here. Incredible amount of jobs have been created because of this cooperative. And so Tim invited local legislators and county commissioners and city council people and the press and the TV. And so a woman whose Tim Co-op assisted in creating jobs had her employees come forward and give their name. And so this one woman stepped forward and looked at the bright lights of the TV camera and said her name. And I will never forget what happened next because I had the great opportunity to be there. She turned to walk back to her seat, but she had something very important to add. And she swiveled around and said, without this cooperative, I'd still be on welfare. Without this cooperative, I'd still be on welfare. Without Lake Region Electric Cooperative, so many people would struggle even more because of what this electric cooperative has done. So there'll be many more books written about this cooperative. Right now there's technical manuals. There's 835 electric cooperatives serving in 48 states, serving more than half of the landmass of this great country we love. They serve about 42 or 43 million customers, member owners. And so the nation's co-ops have put together this committee called the Strategic Technology Advisory Board, something like that. I call it, how did you do it? How did you do it committee? So they only select the brightest people to serve on this committee. And despite the handicap of graduating from Iowa State University, Tim Thompson is on that committee. Because they want to know how he did it. How was it that he became the first co-op in the nation to have a combined wind and solar? How'd you do that? And oh, by the way, Tim, how were you able to put in not one but two solar gardens? And not only that, this is the only co-op in the nation that provides natural gas. Providing natural gas is very different than providing electricity. But so successful is what Tim and his board of directors have done that the Public Utility Commission of the great state of Minnesota adjudicates rates. If you want to raise rates by a natural gas company, they have to prove it. If you want to do anything, the PUC has to prove it. Prove it for safety and reliability and all that sort of business. So impressed with what Tim has done, they said, you don't need to come back. We're not going to look at your rates, your cost base. We're so impressed with you, what you do, but could you come down and talk to us and tell us how you did this? Because you have set the standard for the other natural gas companies, serving far more than 1,000 customers that Lake Region has done. If I could use the secular version of the last gospel, the last chapter, the last verse, it would go, and Tim did many other things. Tim did many other things. But let me conclude by quoting yet another book of the Bible, the book of Numbers. The book of Numbers was written to do a census to enumerate the 12 tribes of Israel. But in that book of Numbers is something that you might hear every Sunday. I certainly hear it every Sunday, the church I attend. And it goes like this. I suspect you could recite it by heart. The Lord bless you and keep you. But it's the next clause which describes the blessing and the miracle that is Lake Region Electric Cooperative. The Lord make his face shine upon you. Because it is this co-op, among others, that God has chosen to shine upon you, to bring you light, to illuminate you in every possible way, every second of every day. And that is the blessing and the miracle of this cooperative. Happy anniversary.